approve that way.
Jeff said we're good to go.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll need for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jackie, you have the roll.
I do.
Okay. The quorum. Item C, adoption of agenda. I have a few potential changes and some questions for you, Brent. First one is under item F2, we'll add the additional list of bills that Jackie sent out this afternoon. Item G5B, electronic board documents. Speaking with Brent, that one's probably best handled with him here in person and when we have a full board as well. So we'll move that until next month. My questions for you, Brent, are on the policy reviews, specifically, let's see, under new business, item 1B3. Should that be under item C as item 2 is new policy?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll move that to item number 2 under C, and then items 4 and 5 will become items 3 and 4.
Yep.
Any other changes?
Andy, so number 3 moves to new policy?
Yeah, 216.2, board member development and training.
Yep.
Moves to C2.
Any other changes? Not a
No.
motion.
I just want to make sure everybody got the updated agenda that has the addition of Mr. Snyder's early retirement resignation.
I probably didn't print that for Scott. Do you need an updated one? It's probably not in the board packet though that you have. Let me do that real quick.
Okay, I think everybody's good there. Entertain a motion to adopt the agenda with the changes.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda with those changes as noted.
Second. A motion and a second to adopt the agenda as noted with changes. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item D, public input on non-agenda items. Anybody signed up to speak tonight? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Move on to item E, approval of minutes of past meetings.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
A motion and second to approve the minutes of past meetings. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item F, approval of financial items. Financial reports, summary list of bills, plus the additional bills, and school business official report. Jackie.
On page 5, I have the general fund summary. I'll go into it with a little more depth than I would normally because Amy's joining us for her first meeting. But as you can see, December 2021 is laid out on the left side, and then a cumulative 3-year comparison is over on the right. And for December, our revenue was up $277,000 from the previous year. Revenue does include things from the state, receipts from the state, receipts of property taxes, as well as any cash reserve levies that we do, as well as miscellaneous income, whether that's rentals or textbook fees, anything like that. Expenditures for December were also up $196,932. We do have months where that looks a little bit higher and other months where it looks a little bit lower. We continue to monitor that as the year goes on, and I'll give a better update as we close the end of the year. Our cash is also up, and we had a discussion about that, I think it was last month, or maybe the month before, where our cash will be up simply because we're cutting back on expenditures. We're cutting back on our sources of revenue that come in, that we're utilizing those revenues because we're reallocating in other ways within our budget. And then our cash reserve levy was the same as it was in prior years. So our cash will continue to grow, and that's what we need to either review or look at as we budget for the new year. On the left, pretty typical things. Property taxes are income, and then our state aid is broken down into the various allocations that we do receive. Those allocations need to be used, other than state aid, which is a lump sum, but the other allocations need to be used for those purposes, and that's what we call categorical funds. And then on the bottom, expenditures, I broke those out into those different line items, and then within that are individual line items. And that is the general fund in a nutshell. And then on the next page, what we call special revenue funds, we have management fund, physical plant and equipment levy, playground levy, save, and debt service. About the only thing to note is that we did pay our annual interest payment for save, came through debt service for $18,450. That's paid to Frontier Bank once a year, just interest, and then interest and principal twice a year, or once a year as well in July. So those are the balances there, if anybody has any specific questions. And then the next page is page 7, which is what we call our proprietary funds. So you have activity, hot lunch, student construction, FFA farm, and then our split fund. And as you can see, the student construction is running at a negative now. That's kind of how we do that while it's being constructed, and we'll source that from other funds as we need to at the end of the year until that house is complete and sold. And then, of course, the summary list of bills, quite a few pages. That's pretty normal for this time of year. It does involve all of the funds, so as you review those, let me know if you have any specific questions.
Do you just want to maybe touch on briefly the amount of federal funding we get that does not essentially come from the state? The high level?
At a high level, well, federal funding right now is our Esser Funds, so that's a huge chunk of money. And we have that posted on our website under the COVID folder to kind of tell people what we're utilizing that for. It is specific to COVID-related expenses and has to be approved, and so we had to submit an application for that. Other federal funding would be title funds. So our Title I allocation, which is around $80,000, and our title expenses are about double that. And so then we fund the rest of our title program with at-risk and dropout prevention dollars. Federal funding would come from our state free and reduced right now. So that is also sort of an Esser fund, but every student qualifies for free lunches, and this is the second year now, so that is also federal funding. So we qualify for what's called a single audit, which is just a more in-depth audit by our external auditor, because we had over $750,000 in federal funds last year, and we will also probably have that this year with the free lunches. Otherwise, everything else is state funded, if I can think about it.
Very good, thank you.
Medicaid is also federal.
Are you still tracking casino funds
I am.
separately?
I am. I can give a
Ballpark, where are we at?
$350,000. I just had to submit a report to the casino, the Lyon County Riverboat Foundation, for their annual audit, and I can present a little bit more in depth on that next month. But basically, I had to submit what our carryover is, what we use our dollars for, what our future dollars are going to be used for. And the casino would like us to see that spent down a little bit further, but they understand with COVID and some federal funding, our plans changed quite drastically the last couple of years. But about 350 is where we continue to stay. We pay for free fruit and vegetable out of that, backpack program, all of our school supplies, donation to after prom, after grad, some technology.
Put a bunch of money into curriculum also, I believe.
Yep, our curriculum purchases are coming out of there.
You're not going into detail, but no.
I'm trying to think, I felt like there was one other big tab in that, but yeah, I'll give a better report on that next month.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on any of those items? I'll entertain a motion to approve those when you're ready.
We'll make a motion to approve those financial items, including the additional bills.
I'll second.
Have a motion and second to approve the financial items as listed, plus the additional list of bills. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Item G, administrative reports, discussion items. Number 1, recognition and congratulations to student, staff, and community. Mr. Jordan?
Yeah, first I'd like to recognize Amy Harder. Amy's joining us for her first board meeting. On behalf of the rest of the board, the staff, and the community, we want to thank Amy for serving for the next 2 years and appreciate her time getting up to speed as quickly as she can on what the board does. So welcome, Amy. Number 2, as I kind of alluded to earlier, I would like to recognize Dan Snyder. Dan has served the Central Lyon community for 32 years as a teacher, coach, and colleague. Did some quick math earlier this afternoon. If we averaged 50 students per class the last 32 years, that's over 1,600 students that he's had walk through his door. And so we want to make sure that we recognize Dan for all of his time and all of his mentoring over the last 32 years. Great educator and great colleague. Principals, if you have anything else, anybody else you'd like to recognize?
No.
Head shakes no from both of them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jordan. We will move on to item 2, communications. Anything from you, Jackie, or you, Mr. Jorth?
I have nothing additional.
Nothing additional.
Okay. Item number 3, student and staff presentation. Mr. P, elementary and middle school science curriculum update.
I'll let Mandy go first about her part.
Okay.
So I'm just going to share kind of like what I've seen in my classroom so far doing the new science curriculum. And I asked a couple of all of my 8th graders how they liked and what disliked compared to what we would have done last year in my classroom. So some of my things I think are really positives for the 7th and 8th graders is that we're kind of building and building and building on what they've learned in their past years. Well, we're just starting, so we're not really building yet because it's our first year of doing it through K-8, right? K-8. So the things that I really enjoy is that they give you tons and tons of options to choose from between like hands-on labs, online labs, interactivities is what they call them. It's just kind of like simulations of different scenarios that the kids can choose from. And then I like how it makes the kids think a lot more in depth compared to what they used to have to do. When I asked the kids, that was their dislike. They hated that they had to think that way. And a common thing I think I saw in everyone's papers when I asked today was, quizzes and tests are way too hard because they make you think, and that's what they said. And I brought a couple of examples, but yeah. So I think it's a positive, they do not. And then some of the dislikes that I have found me personally is that some of the activities that they have online are kind of confusing, like even for me to figure out. Like, it's touchy. So like if you're supposed to move the beaker over here and you have to get it in the right spot, otherwise it doesn't read your results, or like lots of clicking that kind of messes everyone up and it doesn't work that smoothly. Another thing is, like with our Chromebooks, downloading a bunch of things on their Chromebooks for the kids. If it doesn't go to Office, it goes to Google and they can't do stuff in Google and save it. And then we have issues of them losing stuff because they thought it was Office, but it was Google, and then they can't find it. And I'm kind of working around that by putting it all into Canvas, and then they can access it in an easier way that they're used to accessing it, I guess. Some of the students' comments that they said today, and something I like too, is that the textbook is theirs. So they get to write in it, they can rip pages out, they can do activities in there, it's theirs. And that was like a common thing that they all liked, and like I like to use in my classroom because you can say, turn to page 216 and we're gonna fill out this graph. So instead of like having graph paper or having materials, it's there for them already in the book. Another thing that the kids really liked is they have a bunch of like labs that take like maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and they said they really enjoyed doing those quick little kind of enrichment activities instead of either not doing anything like that or doing something where they kind of lose interest that takes a long time. That's all I really have.
Great job.
Thank you.
Just to piggyback on a lot of that, but one of the things that I can add to it, as part of the search committee for a new curriculum in science, one of the things we were looking for is alignment, and aligning to the NGSS that Iowa adopted a few years back, and it does that very, very well. It helps teachers track the standards that they've taught throughout the year. She also talked about how if we choose, and we do talk about this a lot in our Wednesday meetings about, what are you teaching right now? What are you teaching right now? What are you teaching right now? We could all be teaching about geology at the same time. We could have those conversations about geology, K8, if we so chose to do so. Another thing I really like about, one of the reasons that drew me to this curriculum was it was similar to what we had in the past, but with a little bit of steroids added to it. With the online aspects, the simulations, like Mandy was saying, the interactivities, a lot of rigor and relevance, and that's what we want here at Central Lyon for sure, like she was talking about as well. It makes the kids answer the question, my favorite, why, a lot. I think as we get further into our 6-year deal, as you work with it, it gets easier. So some of the things that the teachers, like myself and many others, the toggling, like Mandy also was talking about, I think it has gotten better. I've answered less questions about the program as the years gone along. And probably the last thing that really drew me to this curriculum was how they make our ISAFS tests. Savas makes the test. And those tests and quizzes that we take on a weekly, daily basis are just like the ones going to be taken when it comes standardized test time. Okay? Because they're not standardized. Make sense?
Still feel good about it.
Definitely.
I know I struggle with using Google Sheets or whatever it is. I'm all Microsoft Excel, so I can imagine there's a little frustration here trying to go back and forth. I probably couldn't do it.
Oh, there's some like Google, some like Excel, it's,
Yeah.
to get everybody on the same page, that's another one of those times we stub our toe once in a while and try and figure out
Sure.
how to make something work right.
Any questions? All right, thank you. Okay, item 4, principals, and Mr. Harmon and Mr. Engelman not scheduled for anything tonight, so move on to item 5. Mr. Jorth. Item A, OSHA ETS update and sample policies.
Yeah, page 17 of the packet has a brief memo in regards to the ETS. As you probably know, the Supreme Court heard arguments on Friday in regards to the ETS. They've yet to provide any ruling. But what you may not have heard is that on Friday evening, Iowa Labor Commissioner Rod Roberts provided a statement that said Iowa would not be adopting or enforcing the OSHA mandate regardless of the Supreme Court's ruling. And I included the press release from the governor. So there's a little dispute about whether that, whether the federal OSHA will ultimately mandate enforcement in Iowa and federal OSHA employees would implement. So until everything resolves itself, I think the most important thing is the board familiarize themselves with the sample policies, which I've updated, but we will not implement any requirements in regards to vaccination, testing, or masking until we have further clarity from the court and then ultimately a more formal interpretation about the authority of Iowa OSHA not to implement if indeed it's held to be lawful. So again, the next few pages has the sample policies, if indeed we would need to adopt them. It may require for us to have a special meeting at some point in the future, but until, again, we have clarity on that, we'll just continue to wait.
Any questions for Brent on that? Okay, thank you, Mr. Jorth. Do you have anything else you would like to report on?
Yes, sir.
How about your books? Did you want to talk about that? Or did they know about the books I handed out?
Yeah, so I talked about this last month. We did make a selection for a book study for the administrative team. I love it here, so Jack, you should have a copy for each board member if you want to take that and start kind of digging into it. It's really about climate and culture and how to create an environment where employees feel empowered and supported. And we're hoping to really dig into that here this second semester. So wanted to make sure each one of you had a copy as well. Jackie saw the author at one of her conferences in the fall and recommended the book, and I've started reading, and it's a pretty quick read. So hope you guys enjoy the book.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 6, board committees. One of the items I had on my list is, are we, from a buildings and grounds committee perspective, are we still looking at a March facilities plan presentation from the architects?
Yes, so I've been in contact with FEH. They're planning for a February meeting with the Buildings and Grounds Committee. And then they'll be back for a final presentation with the entire board at our March board meeting.
Okay. Anything? Any other reports from board members or standing committees? Okay, we will move on to item H, old business. Item number 1, consider second reading of the new policies as listed.
Yeah, so again, the summaries are in the memo on page 28. We had the first reading last month, and so these are coming back for a second reading tonight and adoption.
I will entertain a motion to approve the second reading of those policies when you're ready.
So move.
Second.
A motion and second to approve the second reading of the new policies as listed. favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to item I, new business. Some more policies for us. Item 1, consider policy review. Okay, so items A and B we can take together as review. Okay with you, Mr.
Correct.
Joy? Okay.
Yep, yep.
Are we okay waiving the second reading of those?
Yeah, these,
Right.
again, these policies are minor language changes. There's no change to the intent of the policies, and that's why I would recommend the waiving of the second reading, since we're just really reviewing them.
I'll make a motion to approve the policies listed in section A and B and waive the second reading.
I'll second.
We have a motion and second to approve the review policies listed in section A and B and waive the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item C, consider first reading of new policy. First one, 215, Board of Directors Records, and 216.2, Board of Directors Member Development and Training.
So these two policies we have not had in the past. We've had 215, we've had the exhibit, which are recommendations for what should be in the board meeting minutes, which you just approved the review of, but we have not necessarily had the language which is in 215.1 in regards to the records. And then the second item there, as we alluded to earlier, is board member development and training. And then as it states in the memo, in order to kind of receive different recognition from the Iowa Association of School Boards, we need to have a policy on the books in regards to development and training for board members. So if approved, we'll bring this back for a second reading in February.
So when you're ready, I'll entertain a motion to approve the first reading of those policies.
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of those policies as listed.
Second.
A motion and second to approve the first reading of new policies 215 and 216.2. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Item 2, personnel. Let's take Mr. Snyder, take his early retirement first and separate. We can take B and C together.
Yeah, like I mentioned at the top here, we want to recognize Dan Snyder for his 32 years of service to students in the community, as well as his fellow teaching staff and support staff members here at Central Lyon. If approved, the incentive is $30,000 paid out over a 5-year period to health reimbursement account. And Mr. Snyder meets the qualifications as listed in the policy included, and that was sent yesterday afternoon.
I'll make a motion to approve Dan's early retirement.
I'll second.
A motion and second to approve the early retirement application of Dan Snyder. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Snyder, for your service.
B and C, as Andy had alluded to, Rebecca Hickman has submitted her resignation as a special education teacher. She currently serves students in the high school. And Ms. Hakeman is what we refer to as a Strat 2 special education teacher, which means she administers the alternative assessments. So this is like most positions are becoming in schools, this position is something that will be hard to fill because not many special education teachers have that endorsement. And so not only do we want to thank Mrs. Hakeman for her 6 years working with our students here at Central Lyon, but we appreciate her giving her resignation to us at this point in the school year so that we can begin the hiring process and try to recruit a high-quality special education teacher to work with our students with significant disabilities. And then as Mr. Harmon's memo alludes to, Captain Van Berkom has agreed to step into a long-term sub position due to an elementary staff member who has a pregnancy that's expected to begin here in March. So.
So with Rebecca's resignation, Brent, where does that leave us with current open positions? Is it just the 2 baseball positions plus this one?
Yes, and then we'll have to strategize how we want to fill Mr. Snyder's position.
Yep.
So really it's those 2 teaching positions and then the assistant coaching positions that are currently available. And we're always looking for bus drivers and help with our support staff positions as well.
Okay, thank you. Make a motion for both of those when you're ready.
Make a motion to approve the resignation and hiring as listed.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the resignation and hiring as listed. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item J, announcements, dates to remember.
Busy month of January. I would like to just highlight a couple of these. This Friday at the home basketball game versus West Lyon, we will have a meet the bus event. Transportation Director Lane Menning will have a bus parked out in front of the main entrance and hopefully recruiting potential bus drivers. Believe it or not, federal requirements are going to increase for individuals that will be bus drivers in the future. And so we've got a little window between now and March that we can get in underneath the current regulations. So we're going to try to do one big push here in the home basketball game. We're expecting a nice crowd. So hopefully maybe bending the ear of a couple more individuals to help us out with that. Then I'll skip down to Saturday the 22nd. We host the Robotics League Championship here at Central Lyon. Mr. Allen and Mr. Poletsky are putting in a lot of work in preparation for that, but we're also looking for individuals to help on that day that wouldn't mind serving as judges and individuals that would interview students throughout the course of the day and kind of provide them with feedback on their bots and their various projects that go along with that. Anybody in the community that would like to come out and watch, there is no admission on that day. So it's a great event for us to showcase students in the robotics program. Again, if you're interested in helping and volunteering, please contact Mr. Allen. And then Monday the 31st is the Iowa Association of School Board member workshop in Sheldon. Amy, Andy, and I will be going, but the training is open to any board member that would like to participate. So Dave, Scott, if you're interested, the meeting starts at 5:30. Should be done around 8:30. They'll serve us dinner. I would encourage board members to kind of take a look at their calendar, and if you're able to make it, we'd love to go as a team and add you to our list. So check your calendars, and I'll follow up here in the next couple days to see if that's something that you might be interested in joining.
And so my intent with that one is just to go as a refresher. It's 6 years now since I joined the board, so.
Yeah, it's always a good refresher. I've done that a few times.
Brent, one of my questions for you, can you expound upon the additional requirements that are going to be put on new bus drivers after March?
Yeah, so right now, what you'll have, like a 14-year-old must have like a learner's permit to get their regular driver's license. Bus drivers will have to have so many hours behind the wheel with supervision from a certified bus driver. So not only is it more time for the individual, but it's also more time from our perspective because we've got to supervise that. And then there's additional testing that's going to be required to receive the school bus endorsement specifically. So the drive time is the big one. I don't understand why we're adding more requirements to bus drivers since we're in such short supply. But ultimately it comes from the federal government, not necessarily the state government when it comes to obtaining those endorsements.
Okay. So one of the items I think we have to discuss is the next board meeting on the 14th. There's a first round of boys basketball postseason that night, right?
Yes, I don't know if we would stand a chance to have a bye, so that would be a factor.
Yeah, knock on wood, you know, if we continue to play the way we do, most likely we will not play that night. But if something should happen, there's a small likelihood that we could play that evening.
Do you know when that schedule comes out at all, or?
I would guess within the next 2 weeks. I think next Friday is the last date before the coaches meeting. So we should have, if we're playing, we should know before the end of January.
Okay. So if it's okay with everybody else, I think we keep it on that night. And then if we need to call an audible in a couple of weeks, we'll do that. Okay. Anything else on schedule, Brent?
Nope.
At that board meeting, we're probably looking at a student achievement work session as well, right?
That is correct. Elementary students are taking FAST tests. They started them last week, continue this week, so we should have mid-year FAST assessment data in addition to state comparison ISASS data from last spring and the school performance profile review. I gave you that information back in December, but we'll go in a little bit more depth with that when we meet in February.
Sounds good, thank you. All right, well, that's it for calendar stuff. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
First one out of the way. All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we're adjourned.
Mr. George, do you want to hang out on the phone while we sign bills, just in case there's a question? Okay.
Yeah, promise the one we just shorted.
What do you say?
So you can't promise the one.
Yeah, I know, I figured that. Mr. Harmon, I actually have a question after the standardized test stuff from last year. Do you know, are they sending that? Or-
We're having a, that's what this week presented next.
Oh, okay, sounds good, that's still from last
The
year.
thing is, we get them before the school year's done, but they're not standardized to the state, so
Oh,
they don't give
sure.
us anything.
Because I was thinking they were gonna go look at the
Peer
fall
teacher.
conferences or
Right.
something, right? And then they weren't
didn't have
ready.
the writing portion
I wonder-
done yet. So. it's great
I just
for-
realized after I heard that, I was like, oh, I never saw this.
When they have a writing portion that they have to.
I don't think there's a whole lot of bills.
Yeah.
Most of the
Takes a long
reports,
time, yeah.
officials, so hopefully this won't take too long.
I like this one.
Some of them are empty.
Tell me what I need to.